So if, like me, you're a fan of the notorious RBG, or even if you lean toward the right and care about the late Justice Scalia, you're going to want to make it a night at the Opera this spring in Wilmington. And to tell us why, we're joined by Brendan Cook from OperaDelaware. Welcome, Brendan.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
So how did you choose the works this year? You got Dead Man Walking and Scalia and Ginsburg.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every year we're trying to respond to what our audience tells us that they want. And when we first started this festival format, we had to do things that were a little out of the way, that were going to be travel worthy for Philadelphia, for New York, for Baltimore. I mean, if it was going to be one of the ABCs of opera that they could see at home, right, well, you know, what would be the impetus for them to come here? So we try to do some things that are off the beaten path, but my joke that I've told too many times, I actually only have two jokes. Last year, we had, or 2 years ago, we had these obscure Rossini operas, right, called Semiramide, and then the not so obscure La Cenerentola, or Cinderella. My joke this year is that if you don't know whether Semiramide is a great opera by Rossini or something you take for cholesterol, then we might not get you in the door. So right, the logic this year was, you know, what happens if we sort of lower some of those barriers, right, stick to titles that are in English, that are somewhat topical, right, and you know, we really wanted to take a deep dive into our stout legal community here and do something that might be of interest to them.
Nice,
so,
nice.
you know, by and large, that has worked, and we're super excited about it. We didn't know that Justice Ginsburg was going to be in the news every day when we decided to plan this. So there's, you know, right, some people have said I read the tea leaves wisely, but it was really just we wanted to do something that meant more to more people in our community.
Nice.
How has that show been received?
It's
in these very polarized times.
It's neat. I mean, it's a wonderful message because, you know, you've got these two people that are kind of bickering at each other for the whole show. There's three characters in the show. There's Scalia, Ginsburg, and a commentator. Essentially, Justice Scalia is on trial for excessive dissenting, and you know, so they're sort of bickering at each other. And at the end, the commentator says to RBG, he refers to Scalia as her enemy. And sort of the floor drops out of the music. Just, enemy? He's my best friend. You know, and so this message of like, hey, we can vehemently disagree on policy, but still be pals and still have dinner together. I mean, it's a great message that we want to amplify out there today in these sort of polarizing times. It's convenient for us that their friendship seemed to revolve around going to the opera together, so that's pretty neat. But
so in terms of the opera in general, making the opera accessible to, you know, modern audiences, young audiences, these all seem like really good ideas. Like, what if you're giving the pitch for the importance of opera today? Yeah. How would you do it?
Well, you know, we've been doing it for 421 years. We've been making opera for that long, and I'd argue that we really don't need to do much to make it accessible. It is accessible. You know, you pay more to park your car at Philly Stadium than you pay, you know, to come to the opera. Yeah. I feel like it's fallen out of the public consciousness a little bit. So it's just, you know, it's our job to tell people you don't need to be afraid of this stuff. You know, if you go to a production of La Boheme, you know, written more than 100 years ago, you're still going to identify with those characters and with that story. So, you know, I sort of bristle at the, you know, what are you going to do to make it more accessible? Because it's there, and it resonates with people who will sort of give it a shot. But
what do you love about it?
Man,
great question.
It's tough. I mean, opera comes from the Latin word meaning work, and it's kind of amazing to me. I saw my first opera when I was 19, and I have to admit, I bought tickets to impress a girl. I don't remember her name, but I remember pretty much every detail about the production. I sat there and I'm watching the overture, and I was in the cheap seats upstairs, so I could count all the members of the orchestra. I'm like, my God, there's 70 people in that orchestra. Curtain goes up, there's 100 people on stage, all in these handmade costumes. I look at my ticket price, I'm like, something doesn't compute. I paid $50 to be here, and this magic is happening. So I think, for me, like the feeling that I get when I walk around all day with an opera ticket in my pocket, right? I know that I'm going to corner out a piece of my life that night to participate in something that is extraordinary, and something that like only exists for 2.5 or 3 hours. You can't stream it, you can't hit pause. Like, you got to invest a little bit of yourself in it, and the payoff payoff is huge. So
give us the essentials. When is this? How can you buy tickets? Et cetera?
Sure. So the festival is last weekend in April, first weekend in May. We open on April 27th with Dead Man Walking, a really, really gripping story about Sister Helen Prejean becoming a spiritual advisor to a death row inmate. So we break your heart first, and then we repair it the next day with the comedies. And on the 28th, we have a matinee of Scalia Ginsburg, trial by jury. And then the following week, we flip that. So on Friday night, we have the Scalia Ginsburg trial by jury, and Saturday, Dead Man Walking. Nice. And tickets are available on OperaDelaware.org. But move quickly, because our community is responding, which is wonderful to be able to share.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on the Wilmington Show.
Sure. Thanks for being here.
Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any positive stories that Zach and myself need to talk about, be sure to submit it at stories.wilmington.love.